There is a kind of silence that feels louder than noise. You pray, and nothing changes. You worship, but you feel empty. You cry, and heaven feels closed. And the dangerous thought begins to grow. Maybe God stopped listening. But let's slow down. The Bible never hides the reality of divine silence. In Psalm 13, David cries out, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" Notice something powerful. David doesn't pretend. He doesn't fake strength. He brings his confusion directly to God. Silence in Scripture is not a sign of weak faith. It is often the environment where faith matures. Now consider Job. Job was righteous. God himself said so, yet Job loses everything. And for 37 chapters, God does not answer. 37 chapters of pain. 37 chapters of questions. 37 chapters of silence. But silence did not mean absence. God was revealing something deeper, not just to Job, but to history. Job thought he needed answers, but what he truly needed was revelation. And when God finally speaks, he does not explain everything. He reveals his greatness. Sometimes we want explanations. God gives perspective. Now let's look at Joseph. Joseph received a promise at 17, but that promise led to betrayal, slavery, false accusation, and prison. Years passed, no new dreams, no new word from God, just quiet. But every silent year was training him. Prison taught him leadership. Betrayal taught him forgiveness. Delay taught him patience. Silence was preparation. What feels like inactivity may actually be development. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." When God is silent, he may be working on layers you cannot see. We often judge seasons by what is visible. But God works underground. A seed buried in soil looks forgotten. But it is forming roots, and roots must grow before fruit appears. Silence strengthens roots. Now here's the critical shift. In Psalm 13, after David questions God, he ends the psalm differently. "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation." What changed? Not his circumstances. His trust deepened. Silence purified his faith. There is a difference between faith built on emotion and faith built on conviction. Emotion fades. Conviction stands. When you worship in silence, that is mature faith. When you obey in silence, that is deep trust. When you keep believing without new confirmation, that is spiritual growth. Hebrews 11 calls this the substance of things hoped for, not seen, not heard, but trusted. So if God feels silent right now, ask a different question. Instead of asking, "Why are you not speaking?" ask, "What are you shaping in me?" Is he strengthening your endurance? Is he refining your motives? Is he teaching you to depend on him instead of feelings? Growth is rarely dramatic. Transformation is often quiet. And remember this, silence is not rejection. Silence is not punishment. Silence is not abandonment. Silence can be alignment. Alignment of your character with your calling. Alignment of your heart with his will. Alignment of your timing with his purpose. Because when the season shifts, you will need the strength you built in silence. One day, you will look back at this quiet season and realize God was closer than you thought. He was building foundations you could not see. And even when heaven was quiet, God was never still.